As though the Karen Reed trial in Massachusetts didn't end in a train wreck, there's a lot of fallout. They're disciplining officers. But are they really?
As a result of the Karen Reed trial, 2 officers are being punished. But is it really a punishment? I'm Lainey Law.
And I'm attorney Andrew Myers.
Oh, Andrew, things haven't been going too well at school. I think I might punch someone in the face so I can get some suspension so I can take a few days off, because that seems to be what the officers are doing in this case. It seems like they're getting a slap on the wrist and maybe a little vacation, a little break.
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, you can discipline people, whether it's a bad kid or a bad police officer. And in this case, we have 2 bad police officers, and I don't mind saying it. They can stop me all they want. I'm not doing anything wrong. But is it really punishment? So let's take a look at 2 officers that are now being punished for things that came out during the Reed trial, if you remember. You remember Trooper Michael Proctor's horrible texts. Well, one of the investigators in Karen Reed's trial to forfeit a vacation days, I should say, over the handling of Trooper Michael Proctor's texts. And yes, this is from WBZ News. They're the CBS station in Boston. Canton State Police Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik, who was one of the lead investigators in John O'Keefe's death, forfeited 5 vacation days following an internal affairs investigation. A spokesperson for the department confirmed Monday.
No, 5 vacation days. But I don't know about the Canton Police Department, but I do have some friends in jobs where they get vacation days, and they usually get like 10, 15 vacation days. So
yeah. This is the state police. The state police.
So yeah, I don't know how much vacation they usually have, but presumably he still's got some vacation days left.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Bukhenik was the subject of an internal affairs investigation that the state police announced shortly after the trial against Karen Reed ended in a mistrial due to a hung jury. So it sounds like something at the Karen Reed case. Surprise, surprise.
So we go back to Trooper Proctor's text messages. And if you want to know about them, we did them in a previous episode. So we're not going to repeat it all here. But the investigation was prompted because of State Trooper Michael Proctor's text messages about Karen Reed, in which he referred to her in derogatory terms and said he hoped she would commit suicide.
Those texts were sent to family, friends, and co-workers. Proctor testified Proctor is on leave pending the outcome of disciplinary investigation. The friends, families, and co-workers is crazy.
Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik, who worked with Proctor on the investigation into John O'Keefe's death, was in one of the group chats in which Proctor sent the inappropriate text messages.
State police released the final outcome of Bukhenik's internal affairs investigation Monday, in which he was disciplined by forfeiting 5 vacation days.
And there he is. That's Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik, who testified on the stand in the Karen Reed case. He was one of the 74 witnesses.
It's kind of like they went, you weren't doing your job, so as punishment, you get to take less vacation, and we'll keep letting you do your job that you weren't doing.
Is the Massachusetts State Police that hard up for officer? I mean, I, with all due respect to law enforcement, you and I both have extended family members that are in law enforcement, so I have all due respect for law enforcement.
With
but
peace and love.
Is the Massachusetts State Police so hard up for officers that they've got to just slap the guy on the wrist and say, oh, bad boy, bad boy? Because that's really what they did here.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case, because you also, like, when you think of law enforcement, a lot of today's youth, especially with TikTok, they're thinking of cases like this. So maybe they are struggling to find people because they're really not painting a pretty picture.
No. Sergeant Bukhenik did fail to conform to work standards established for his rank, title, or position when he failed to properly supervise and/or counsel a subordinate for sending inappropriate correspondence during an ongoing investigation, the report from the current state police Colonel Maughan read.
Bukhenik should have both reprimanded Proctor and reported the text. Colonel wrote, the outcome of the Trooper Proctor's investigation has not yet been revealed. He has not been allowed to work as a state trooper in the meantime. So that's at least
Well, that's
Oh,
Proctor.
God.
Yeah, I mean Proctor. We talked about.
Proctor needs to just never be a cop ever again.
Yeah, we talked about Proctor. He said some really, disgusting things about Karen Reed. He said she has no certain body part. He made fun of a medical condition that she has, which isn't a pleasant condition to have for anyone. And you don't make fun of somebody for something like that. He used one of George Carlin's 7 dirty words that begins with a C to describe her. I mean, you don't talk like that. And yes, I know one of the commenters that we had before said, "Oh, it was only on his personal phone." I don't care. He was on the job. He was on duty. He was getting paid out of taxpayers' pockets, including me and a million other people. So, I don't care if he was on his personal phone. He said that stuff. It just speaks badly for the entire Massachusetts State Police.
Being an authority figure, just because it's closed doors doesn't make it less inappropriate that you said it. It's not, and it's just like, it's not like one annoyed text. It's not, this like bitch. It's like, she is a CT, that she has no butt. She's got her whatever issues she's got going on. This is like the kind of internet comment trolls, basically. Is like being a little internet goblin, but on his phone to random people that he knows, which are in the same community. It's crazy.
Yeah, and when you're I don't care whether you're on your own personal phone, when you're on the dime of the taxpayers of Massachusetts, who apparently could care less, when you're on the dime of the Massachusetts taxpayers, nuh-uh. That's all. That's enough said. Okay, so now the other one isn't directly involved in the case in that he had to remove himself from the investigation because of his family connections, but Canton police officer Kevin Albert was suspended without pay for 3 shifts following an internal investigation. And again, we thank WBZ News, CBS in Boston for this. Canton police detective Kevin Albert was suspended without pay for 3 8-hour shifts following an internal investigation into his conduct.
Kevin Albert is the brother of Brian Albert, the homeowner at 34 Fairview Road at the time that Boston police officer John O'Keefe's body was found on the front lawn in January 2020. Albert was not a detective on the case given his family connection to it, but has been accused by Karen Reed's attorneys of misbehavior and a conflict of interest with investigators on the case.
Okay, so during O'Keefe's former girlfriend's murder trial, potentially problematic, I'll say it's problematic, behavior by Kevin Albert was revealed as part of a testimony. Karen Reed's trial later, as we know, ended in a mistrial due to a hung jury. Second trial, of course, now scheduled for January 27th of 2025.
Trooper Michael Proctor's text. State Trooper Michael Proctor, who is also currently facing ongoing disciplinary action within the state police, testified as the lead investigator on the case during Reed's trial. In addition to offensive text messages he sent about the defendant, Proctor revealed in text messages that he and Kevin Albert had been working in conjunction on a case when Proctor's text from Albert suggested Albert had so much to drink that he forgot his gun and badge in Proctor's cruiser.
Yeah, remember that? Remember that. I feel that the media kind of downplayed that a little bit. I mean, he said it on the stand. They had gone out and had a tad to drink in Proctor's cruiser, and that Kevin Albert, had enough to drink that he forgot his gun and his badge.
We're just out here getting wasted in police cruisers, leaving our guns and identification. It's like, I don't need my gun. I don't need it. Just a few shots. You forget your gun.
So this prompts an internal investigation within the Canton police into the allegations, and it took them 19 pages. Good. The margins must have been huge, and it must have been triple spaced. But in a 19-page report with nearly 200 additional pages of evidence, how many pages does it take to say the guys were drunk? He was so drunk he left his gun and his badge.
Oh my god.
Anyhow, hopefully we're all electronic and they didn't burn down a forest full of trees for those 200 additional pages. But anyhow, Canton Police Chief Helena Rafferty determined that Albert behaved in a way that was unbecoming of a police officer. No, really? And violated department policies about alcohol consumption or possession on the job.
It's just like, you can't drink on the job and you can't be, leaving the guns. Come on, dude. However, the report exonerated Albert of criminal conduct or misuse of his firearm. Oh, despite the text of Proctor about wondering if he left his gun in Proctor's cruiser, Albert told investigators he was only joking and that he had properly returned his gun to the Canton police that evening after a trip to Treehouse Brewing. Oh, he let them know. Yeah, that's great. That's reassuring. It's just like, yeah, no, it was just a joke. It was just joshing.
Do you believe one word of that?
Dinner and some drinks of Proctor while on a trip to Sandwich for a cold case investigation. Hi, guys. I was teasing.
At a select board meeting in early September, Chief Rafferty revealed that Albert had accepted his punishment and he's back on the job. Well, yeah, if you get caught with your pants down, well, no. If you get caught doing something stupid like that and all they do is take 3 shifts away from you,
it's vacation.
It's like a slap on the fist. I told you I was having a conversation with somebody else this week, and we were just talking about this case. And I said, it's like, if you want to punish your kid, it's like sending them up to their room. And up in their room, they have, an iPad, an iPhone. What am I forgetting? A Switch game console. And she comes back and she says to me, yeah, and they probably have some Doritos stashed away. So that's the type of punishment we're talking about, sending a little kid up to their room when they have all their toys up there.
I could use a vacation. I should start drinking on the job. You know that? Andrew, I got some drinking plans next week. We'll see. We'll miss you guys.
Is that what happened to the bottle of whiskey back in my office? I was wondering about that. Lily, did you drink it?
She's on it.
So, again, we have to take our funny hats off and say to ourselves, a lot of people think that Norfolk County is rushing to convict an innocent person. And if you think this is the first time, nuh-uh. Fred Weichel lawsuit against Braintree settled. How much he got in a wrongful arrest suit. For those of you who are outside of Route 495, Braintree is also in Norfolk County, and this is a case that was prosecuted by, get out the dun-dun-duns, prosecuted by the Norfolk County District Attorney. It was a different district attorney. Before the days of Michael Morrissey, there was a district attorney by the name of William Delahunt, who went on to be a congressman. Anyhow, so thank you to the Patriot Ledger for this. The town of Braintree, again, which is in Norfolk County, has reached a $14.9 million settlement with Frederick Weichel, according to a press release issued by the office of Mayor Aaron Joyce.
Attorney Mark Lovie Reyes, who represented Weichel, told the Patriot Ledger that his client appreciated the respect showed him by Braintree, including Joyce, in the latest round of settlement negotiations.
Wait a minute. They showed respect after throwing him in jail for 36 years?
God bless this man.
He thought the town really understood this is a press release by a politician. He thought the town really understood what he had been through. Lovie Reyes said they not only showed willingness to come to the bargaining table, but to look at him as a real person who had suffered these harms. Weichel spent 36 years in prison for the murder of Robert LaMonica before he was exonerated and released in 2017. He sued the town of Braintree, again in Norfolk County, in 2020, claiming the town law enforcement were responsible for his wrongful arrest, imprisonment, and conviction. And there is Mr. Weichel in the lead there in the short-sleeved white shirt. And in the background, you see none other than the Norfolk County Superior Court. That's in Dedham. I've been there many times, tried a case in that courthouse. But that's the Karen Reed Courthouse. That's the courthouse where the Karen Reed trial 1.0 took place. So there we go.
Yeah, Weichel separately sued the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He prevailed in that case in 2022. Jury awarded Weichel $33 million, but he only received $1 million due to a law shielding the state from liability beyond that amount. Is crazy.
So that's why he went forward and sued the town. Now, that was the Patriot Ledger. What follows is a snippet of a column by Howie Carr. You may or may not be a fan of Howie's, but Howie has been around for 30 plus years observing Boston, Massachusetts, mafia, and everything else. And he's a commentator. He's a columnist. So if you don't like Howie, this is something really pertinent that Howie wrote. Meanwhile, the town of Braintree has agreed to pay $14.9 million to a guy who spent 36 years in prison for a murder he did not commit. Stop me if you've heard this one before, especially in Norfolk County.
In 1980, Fred Weichel was a wise guy in Southie, so tough that Whitey Bulger wanted to take him off the board, and he did just that by framing Weichel for a murder he didn't commit.
Whitey even went to visit Weichel in jail while he was awaiting trial in the local Norfolk County Kangaroo Court to warn him, folks, we're just reading what Howie wrote. If I can't get you, I'll get your mother, brother, and sister.
Oh my goodness. At a civil trial in 2022, Weichel also testified that Whitey told him he was going to cut my head off and kick it down the street like a head of lettuce.
Now the town of Braintree owes Weichel $15 million for his life in prison. And the last lawyer for Whitey Bulger, the serial killer who put Weichel behind bars, has now been hired as a special prosecutor for the next scheduled corralling of an innocent person in Norfolk County, the already acquitted Karen Reed.
This is just scratching the surface of the corruption that's oozing out of the ground here on a daily basis, and not just in Norfolk County either, although right now that's ground zero. Oof.
So, all right, we've gotten a couple of comments, not only in this case, in the Karen Reed case, but also in this case, the Karen Reed case, and people have asked me, well, if they're one or the other or both are found not guilty, aren't they going to be able to turn around and bring a suit against the jurisdictions in which they were charged? And here's your answer. The town of Braintree, who had the police that arrested Weichel, is now on the hook for $15 million for the 36 years that he spent in prison. And Howie goes on. Howie is an interesting character. A lot of people like Howie. A lot of people don't like Howie. I happen to like to listen to him on my commute home. It's something to laugh at. Do I agree with Howie 100% of the time? No. But is he a colorful commenter? Yes. Does he make some good points in that article? Yes. So stay with us. We'll read whatever we can find anywhere. And I guess we have had some commenters say a few things about our coverage, haven't we?
Yeah, so I did pull some comments from our last video on Karen Reed, and you guys did have a lot to say. So reality check. Doesn't this special prosecutor have the duty to not pursue this case if there's not enough evidence? So I was curious about that because they're hiring him onto the case, but what if he doesn't actually even believe that Karen Reed did it? What can he do about that?
That's not going to happen. Hank Brennan is a former prosecutor. He worked for the Essex County, Massachusetts District Attorney's Office. And for those of you who are outside of Route 495, that means not from here. You're not from here, are you?
He's not like us.
Yeah, whether we like it or not. So Norfolk County, it's called Norfolk County. Why is it called Norfolk County when it's south of Boston? Anyhow, Essex County is north of Boston, and that's just not going to happen. That's just not going to happen.
Next comment from Eric Smith. I believe the appeal is proceeding quickly because it's interlocutory under Massachusetts particular rules.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you feel like it is moving quickly in that case, obviously, because they're trying to get it down before next year?
Yeah. I didn't mention it in this episode, but they've actually scheduled a briefing schedule. All the briefs are due by the end of October. We already read in a previous episode the petition by the defense to get it heard. And now subsequently to that, and there were headlines, which I skipped over, because the defense has now filed its memorandum. But the reason I skipped over it is they said all the same things that they said not only in their appeal at the Superior Court level, but then they said the same things in their petition, which we did a whole episode on. Now they're just basically restating the same thing in their memorandum. And I saw one headline that said, Karen Reed's attorneys told the court that they're... No. You don't tell the Supreme Judicial Court anything. You argue to the Supreme Judicial Court that because 6 jurors have come forward and said that the jury was unanimous on 2 counts, including second-degree murder, you argue to the Supreme Judicial Court. But headline writers, no, you don't tell the Supreme Judicial Court anything. I've been there. I didn't tell them anything. I argued stuff.
So Daniel Gallagher, did Yannetti and Brennan work at Essex County DA office together at any point? And I saw you already gave this person a bit of a response saying, that this is just it wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary had they worked together, basically, was my understanding from what you had said to them.
Yeah, people switch roles in their careers. You can start out on one side and then switch sides. I mean, I've pretty much always, although I've had to, I actually had a big civil defense case that made it to publication. But it's not unusual for people to be on one side, then switch roles. And as I said in another episode that we did on the Kohlberger case, just because you're advocates for your client in court doesn't mean you're not amicable, doesn't mean you're not friendly. Have I gone out for a cup of coffee with an attorney that represented an insurance company when I was representing a personal injury client? Yes, because you want me to be friendly with the other side because you get more flies with honey than with the other. So, you can be friends with your opponents, but then when you step back into the courtroom, you're right back at it. It's just the way it is.
I love that. Now, I added commas to this one because originally I couldn't understand what they were saying before, so I apologize for my janky edit. But Jenny said, well, Hank, once he looks at the evidence and report from the FBI, which they feel vindicates Karen, still go ahead with the prosecution if he doesn't think she's backed into him with the car. I hope he's a true truth seeker and doesn't go ahead with this if the evidence doesn't prove she did this. And now you kind of answered this with the first comment that you don't think that this is going to be the case. You don't think that he's going to let this go, seemingly. And
I know we're going to get nasty comments. I'm a big boy. I can take it. I've told stories before about how when I was a TV reporter, people said stuff about us. So I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. If it does, I'll eat my hat.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I guess from my logic is that he wouldn't have taken the case if he didn't think that he could fight for it, I presume. I don't know. Kim R., if they want to increase the credibility of the prosecution, then I wonder what Attorney Brennan's authority will be to assess the case and make decisions about the charges that can be supported by the evidence, or if it's still up to Morrissey. If so, that won't change much of the underlying concerns. They will just have someone more skilled to present the case. By the way, I hope they cut the crap. We don't care that they all went to the basketball game and we know it was snowing. Yeah.
I like that comment. That's a good comment. And the part I like about that is that it says, if so, that won't change much of the underlying concerns. They will just have someone more skilled to present the case. And I think, as I said before, I hate to speak ill of another Massachusetts attorney, but we saw what we saw in the prosecution of the Karen Reed case, and it left a lot to be desired. It just, what, if anything, does anybody think about that? Comment down below. I mean, Hank Brennan is a guy that has an incredible reputation on both sides of the bar. So, yeah, they'll just have someone more skilled to present the case. That is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, it's unfortunate to say, but I do think that having someone that presents themselves as a little bit more charismatic does play a significant role in how the jury perceives the evidence that's being supplied. So I've actually surprisingly grabbed another one after this, but I did pull this comment and I meant to make this one the last one, so I apologize, but this one cracked me up, and I even included your answer. So
can I just say, I don't pick these. She picks these. I don't pick them. So I'm saying this for the first time on here.
I picked this out because I read this and I laughed out loud because Louise says, "Dear sir, turning our eyes away from Karen at the moment, can I ask you to cast your memory back to the pre-80s and try to convince us that remember a time that we use less paper than now? In my opinion, we have a paper waste crisis that is unimaginable." Andrew agreed, saying, as when we were paperless, we bought as much copy paste and now we're getting cartridges. But it's so funny because you said, despite green recycling efforts, there's more wrapping packaging in America's grocery stores. And I mostly brought this out to come to Andrew's defense because Andrew, with peace and love, loves the planet and is a little bit of a hippie. Andrew's like, yeah, our recycling's not doing much, but he's like still taking the stuff to the recycling center. He's like, I'm doing my part, even though it's not doing anything. And I thought that was just
well, it's awful.
funny.
I mean, there's a YouTube, a really good YouTube episode out there, and I wasn't prepared for this, folks. I'm an attorney, and I was unprepared. But there's a YouTube out there about how there was a town in upstate New York, and I can't remember where it was, that really truly took recycling extremely seriously. And they when China stopped accepting certain recyclables, plastic, because there was too much junk from America and they couldn't handle it anymore. And so somewhere in the mid teens, 2017, 18, China said no. And so all over America, we stopped sending stuff there, and we didn't know what to do with it. And we're all putting it in this green bucket and that blue bucket. And you go to the recycling center and you put it here and you put it there. And, we all think we're doing the right thing. Well, they were sending it to, I'm not sure if it was Malaysia or somewhere else in Indonesia, that you can tell me down in the comments what I'm talking about, because if I had been prepared, I would have told you. But there's a really good YouTube episode that these people in upstate New York took it so seriously that they said, oh, here's a country that's willing to recycle this, so we're going to send it all there. And they were sending everything there. So these well-intended people from upstate New York went on a fact-finding trip to this island, and they found all the stuff that they were supposed to be recycling, and it was all sitting around as junk. It was just the stuff that was supposed to be recycled was just sitting there in ugly, filthy, putrid junkyards. So America has a long way to go on recycling. I mean, we think we're doing the right thing, but when you look into it, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I will say, and in Andrew's defense too, I'll say with textile recycling, a similar situation where you recycle your clothes, you think that they're getting taken care of, and then you said in other countries you have these huge textile markets where they have more clothes than they know what to do about it. I just thought this was a funny thing to pull out. Andrew is doing his part.
Yeah, and
I
so
don't
are
know.
you.
I also, Andrew and I are both the dweebs who take our recycling to the recycling center, and we have our sorted stuff. So we're both trying, but I just thought this was funny, and I wanted to point out in his defense a little bit that despite this comment, he is trying, and I thought this was a totally funny aside. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have more comments about it on this video, because it's a funny topic. Our next video is on recycling.
When we started out doing these podcasts, we started out doing civil law. Well, people were like, oh, on a good week, we'd get 500 views. And it was like, all right, what's the point of that? Let's go back to our true love, which is true crime. But anyhow, I don't know if you remember, we had a list of topics we were going to get into, and one of them was recycling. And I had to call into the recycling manager down in Boston, because they actually do make a serious effort to recycle it all. And I was going to go down to Boston, talk to her, and go to some of the sites and talk about what they're doing. But it's sad. It's sad that people in America, we want to do good and feel good and pretend like we're doing the right thing. But guess what? Nuh-uh.
Yes, I apologize for derailing it. No comments saying that you guys want that video, because Andrew and I both know that if we were to make a video on recycling, we'd get like 200 views, although we appreciate maybe 50 views. So now let me see. Oh my goodness, I ended up grabbing more comments than I thought. Thank you guys for giving some good contributions. Now, April Kelly, who looks like they have a relative as their profile photo. I would hope for the sake of justice, this new lawyer throws out counts 1 and 3, because the last jury has pretty much said they did not acquit her on those charges. Do you think this is a possibility at all? It really just comes to see what happens with the whole appeal with the jury at this point, right?
Yeah, right. We're waiting for the Supreme Judicial Court. As I mentioned just a moment ago, the defense has filed their memorandum. The prosecution has until late October to file theirs, and the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court has said that they'll hold the hearings as soon as November. So, we should have an answer, but I don't know. I don't see the appeal going the way that the Reed supporters think it will. I see the Supreme Judicial Court, which is very technical. You have to have your margins right, your font right. You got to have everything perfect. They adhere to their rules very, very, very strictly. So unless the verdict is read in open court, my prediction is they're going to say no.
All right. So this is from Lynette McCavier. I'm not even going to try. Sorry, Lynette. I was curious about the fact about that the lesser manslaughter charges Karen Reed was facing. I believe she was facing 20 to 25 years in prison if found guilty. However, Chris Albert, Brian Albert's brother, was found guilty on the exact same charge. A young man was killed by Chris Albert while drinking and driving in the same town. Interesting correlation with the drinking part right there. Left the scene of the crime. Judge Bev Canoni's brother defended him, which I question, is that a conflict of interest? Chris Albert only did 6 months of jail time. So those are two interesting points.
Yeah, it is interesting. And there were a lot of people questioned that. There was a hearing held about Judge Canoni, and she felt that there was no conflict. And I would assume that was, that thought was reviewed by other judges. So there's really nothing we can do about that. And, these sentencing guidelines are somewhat flexible. A lot of people scratch their heads over Chris Albert's very light jail time. So, Karen Reed, by her character and her background and her expertise and the fact that she's, got no record, certainly, those will all be going into calculating any sentence, should there be a sentence.
Mm-hmm. All right. MH, I don't think anyone can add credibility to the case. We can't unsee what we've seen and heard. And that was something that I was concerned about too in a previous episode. How on earth are we going to get an unbiased jury here?
Oh, I thought their point was that how can you put lipstick on a pig? In other words, the facts are the facts. Mm-hmm. The case is the case. The witnesses are the witnesses. But I think the idea is that, you give raw data to two different artists, and the two different artists are going to paint a different picture, or they're going to paint it differently. One will put the lighting this way and the other one will shade it that way. And so I think the thinking is that if the case is presented differently, it might have a different result. And we talked about this ad nauseum in a previous episode, but I think the thinking is that, if they present the case differently, the outcome might be different.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even like, it's just like, I can't imagine retrying this. And I think with the whole Proctor situation and all those text messages that he was sending, and then the Aruba vacation and all of those things, there's a lot of mess that's already out there in the ecosystem that I don't really understand how they're going to navigate that. But that was the last comment that I had pulled. So thank you, Andrew, for dealing with my comments and my derailments. I hope you guys got a chuckle at least out of that one.
Oh, we're going to edit all that out, aren't we, about the recycling and stuff?
Well, everybody's got to know that you're an ethical king.
We try, but you can only do so much. You can really only do so much. And like some of these apartment complexes, as individuals, we all have to put our plastic over here and our metal over there and separate out the aluminum cans from the vegetable cans, and the paper goes here and the cardboard goes there. And, there are a lot of good doobies around that do all of that and spend all that time. And then someone in our local Facebook page this week said that he saw them just taking it all and dumping it in the back of a truck.
Oh my God.
Stuff that people had done all this stuff that I just said, and they were going in with a payload or just dumping it all in the back of a truck. So, and from the YouTube episode, which I'll see if I can try and find it and put it down in the description if I can find it again. And then, there was also an episode of YouTube, and you can find this in India, where truck after truck after truck after truck is just backing up to the river and dumping garbage in the river. And that happens, and where the river goes, it goes into the ocean, and there's a great big island of plastic out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and it's, the planet has become a garbage can, and it's, anyhow, this is a true crime channel. I forgot.
We're gonna have to bust out that recycling video now. This is the content that the people are dying for. I know it.
Recycle people and read true crime, but read it electronically.
Exactly. Yeah. Do your part, guys. Even whether or not whether or not the impact you genuinely believe it'll be felt. That's how you know that you can sleep well at night, is when you're being a good person, even when you don't know if being a good person is really going to make a difference.
Okay, so my closing thought is that I think that we're going to see the Supreme Judicial Court appeal go fairly quickly, as one of our wise commenters pointed out. It's an interlocutory appeal, and they get precedence over everything else. Will the trial happen in January of 2025? It just might. I mean, they're gearing up for it. I mean, at this point, they have, a couple of months yet, even though a couple of those months are the holidays. So I don't know. What are your closing thoughts? Those are mine.
It's hard to predict where this is going to go. I feel like we've kind of gotten lost in the system a little bit, because it's the whole point of the justice system is, you want to take people and you would want to be able to put someone in jail and hope they come out and they're not going to do the crime again. It seems like this is just more about social politics at this point. It's just like you have people being, charged with the same thing, getting 6 months. Meanwhile, who knows how long, if convicted, Karen Reed's going to be behind bars. So it's a messy situation.
Thanks, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and be certain, as you can just see, we do read all of the comments. And so if you have any suggestions for what we should do in the future, we're open to it. But I think for me, it's time to go to the grocery store.
Whether you're in the grocery store, the gas station, or anywhere else, please remember to be kind to people. You don't know what they're going through. And the same goes for our comments section. We want you to comment, but be nice, be kind, be positive if you can. And thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Have a good one.